Good afternoon, everyone. Bienvenue à tout le monde à cette rencontre du comité de dérogation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Nous autres, on est le panel 1. We are a quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances and consents. Our hearings are back to being in person. However, the committee can enable remote participation by video conferencing when requested by registered speakers. So do know that that's an option for you. We are also live streaming on YouTube, and the video is going to be archived and available for future viewing by the public or by anyone on the committee's website. So my name is Anne Tremblay, and with me today are my fellow panel members. Just a minute, I'm having to just clear my screen here. All right, so with me is Mr. Ardo Kekliakin, Mr. Simon Coakley, Ms. Member Lecuyer, and also Member Blatherwick. So you've seen the agenda at the beginning. We will be varying the order a little bit from that. You'll note that the panel members have reviewed all of the materials prior to this hearing and everything that was essentially submitted with regards to the applications, planning reports, and any submissions in support or in opposition as well. So today we're here to hear oral submissions from anyone who has an interest in the applications that are on our agenda. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing, and then to have provided in writing or under oath or affirmation that they've fulfilled the sign posting requirements. In this case, we have everyone's hard copy declarations in, so we won't need to do the affirmations or the swearing orally. So the panel may ask for a brief presentation from you, may just go to straight questions to the applicant and to city staff. So that's how we normally proceed, as we start with that. And then we hear from members of the public, and we will start with our speakers list. And then from there, panel members may actually have questions for our speakers. After that, there's a deliberation by the panel in order to reach a decision. So if you'd like to speak and you're not on my speakers list, you're of course welcome to do so. We'll need you to provide me with your name and your municipal address. I may need you to spell out your family name for the record. Please ensure to convey all of your comments through me and questions through me. And also there's a 5-minute limit on the presentations, and any exceptions are at the discretion of the panel chair, which is myself. So at the end of the hearing on the application, the panel will either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision. And in the latter case, do know that it will not be delivered in the course of the hearing, but of course be part of the written official decision. And that in both cases, whether it's an oral or it's written, it's or reserved and then issued, it's within 10 days. And the Committee of Adjustment will send that official written decision and the reasons to all the parties, participants, and anyone who has requested a copy of the decision. So now we've got some sort of business things to conduct at this point. So I'm going to start with the minutes. So I need a mover for the adoption of the minutes for June 7th. Do I have a mover on the panel? Yes, Member Blatherwick. Do I have a seconder? From Member Lecuyer on, so that those minutes are adopted. For the record, for June 21st, I need a mover, Member Lecuyer, and a seconder, Member Coakley. Thank you very much. So the minutes are adopted. Also need to know whether or not we have any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the items that are either on our agenda or on the agendas of the other panels. Yes, Member Blatherwick.
There was an application at yesterday's panel hearing 446 Edgeworth, which is 4 houses down from my home. Being in my neighborhood, I always recuse myself from any applications in the community.
All right, thank you, Member Blatherwick, for that. So in that case, I think we're going to go at this point directly to our adjournments. We only have one. It's for application number 5. And that's for 379 Cooper, looking for the agent, Mr. Tallet. Yep, that's fine, for sure. So good afternoon.
My name is Tino Talat, Woodman Architects. I know the planning department wants to adjourn this thing, but what we're proposing are 3 units in a basement. We're doing nothing outside the building shell. And the only there were 2 comments that came in. One was that the client was building without a permit, which is not true. He had a permit to deepen the basement. So there is work on the property right now. And the only item that we need through Committee of Adjustment is amenity space, which we're asking to reduce. And that was the amenity space in the rear yard. We know there's a heritage, which is basically the outside face, which we've been working on this for over almost 3 years now. And we've gone through 4 different heritage planners. And our planner actually today sent us an email saying that she's no longer on this file. So anything that we do, we did have a pre-consult with the city a while back, and we've now been advised that the pre-consult has lapsed, but the requirement for this project is simply amenity space. And it had to do with the amenity space in the rear yard, which we can't provide because it's an existing condition. So my client would rather proceed with the application if he could.
So according to the planning report, staff have yet to receive a site plan control application for the subject property. Can you talk to us about that?
After we did the pre-consult, we assumed the planner was looking after the whole application. Because he was deepening the basement, there was a bunch of work that had to occur at the same time. So basically, he's trying to protect the basement right now. So we will probably resubmit to the city just to insulate the basement in this case, which we don't need site plan because, like I said, everything we're doing is within the actual footprint of the building. Then we can continue with the site plan application, which includes everybody. But in terms of comments that we would be getting back, it's the amenity space.
I think we need to hear from our planner on this application. I believe that's Ms. Alcative. That's on this minor variance file, I think is Ms. Alcative online.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Do you hear me?
Yes, so what I'd like is just give us, so you're asking for an adjournment. Our understanding is that the requirements for the adjournment is because of the site plan process. Can you just, in your own words, then just outline why you're asking for this adjournment, just so that we're clear?
So according to what was provided with the applicant, there was in the elevation you can see there is an alteration to the front facade. There is change in the rear yard, and already by the time there is an occurring there is an occurring parking in the rear yard, which wasn't created by permit. So after investigating through the history of the application, we found that the applicant already is aware that this location needs a site plan control, and they had full complete pre-consultations with the city for site plan control. And he was provided with full comments from all the departments, and there was kind of lots of comments. I had a communication directly with the heritage team, and they made him aware from 2021 that he needs a heritage permit to do any alteration to the front facade. And afterwards, he got, I believe, a permit for doing some constructions, but like I don't have the information of what construction he was having the permit for. But in May 3 in 2023 this year, he got a letter to order to comply was made with the city, and the comments was written on this order is that there is an interior alteration for the basement for addition of 3 units without permission, and there was an alteration for the porch without a permit. So accordingly, I wasn't able to review the plans. There was a missing information on the plans, and I sent the applicant, the agent requesting information, but like he's sticking to say, we're just doing a small thing. You don't need all of that, but we need to do all of that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Al-Khatib. All right, so Mr. Talak, did you want to respond to that?
Sure. The basically what they ended up doing in the basement was digging out and digging down to get more headroom. That they had the permit for. And as he was doing that, you had to protect some of the areas. So the stop work order was because he was relocating the drainage pipes that had to be moved when he was excavating the basement. So that was looked after. He hasn't built any partitions down there. It was basically redoing all the structure in the basement. The porch was in bad shape, so that came down, and he was in the process of rebuilding it. So heritage is one of the items, but it doesn't preclude what we're looking at now. Basically, we're here to the committee simply for the amenity space.
All right.
And the parking in the back was always there.
All right, so it just sounds though from the overview that we have both in the planning report and from Ms. Al-Khatib right now that there are a number of items that need to be addressed on this application. So even though you're here just for 2 minor things, what we really want to avoid is having you come back and then come back and then come back. So preferable that we actually look at a more comprehensive approval than to try to just piecemeal move this along.
Sure.
So I'm going to open it up to the committee members if they have any questions for you at this point. All right, so I think we are going to go with an adjournment, and at this point we're going to go with an adjournment sine die because it looks like there's quite a bit going on. So I do need to make a call out though. Is there anyone in the audience, either online or in person, who would like to speak to this adjournment sine die for this application?
That's
Sure, come on forward, and I'm going to need you to sit down and then give me your name and your municipal address clearly for the record, please.
If I may, a lot of the comments that the city was asking for are what you would require for a new building, not an existing building.
All right, thank you for that.
My name is Adib Saad.
Can you please turn on your
Okay.
Thank you.
It's working now? Okay. My name is Adib Saad. I'm the owner for the property 379 Cooper. I just have 2 comments to mention regarding the parking and the work to be done for order to comply. Regarding the parking, we have no parking at the back. This is the parking belong to next door neighbor. He's renting parking out. Sometimes he have more parking, so he's got his car more to my side. And we have an agreement about this because I have no parking in the back, because I know legally we're not parking for us. Secondly, regarding she mentioned about work of comply, I personally call the inspector to come and inspect. The reason is when we dig down for underpinning was almost 2 feet down. So all the existing plumbing to drain the sewer and the drainage was hanging almost 2 feet above ground. So it's not stable all the time, doesn't matter how we can support it. So I called the plumber, I said, no, you have to have the proper slope, you have to put it down, and we called for an inspection. So the inspection came because he was inspecting the building lots of time upstairs when I did the renovation. And I told him, we need to get this one done. He said, I have no even paper for this building. I said, no, we have some, but not for the plumbing, but we have for underpinning. So that's why he said, in this case, I have to order work of compliance, but I'm the person called him to come and see the work because I'm having problem with the plumbing all the time. It's always backing up and not the drainage right. So I just want to point this two out, and no work be done, like no separation down underground at all. So I'm not sure where we got this from. We planning to apply for 3 per apartment affordable in the basement, yes, but whenever you start to work for this at all.
So I think we heard that there are a number of issues, the stop work order being just one of them.
Mhm.
So that's why why the committee is going to adjourn this application sine die to give you a chance to reconcile all of those issues and ensure that when we see you again, that we have essentially a full package of what we need to know in order to provide an approval to you. All right. Is there anyone who have any questions for a speaker? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make one last call,
Thank
though,
you.
just to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Anybody else that wants to speak to this, either for or against? And I don't believe so. All right. So members of the panel, all those in favor of adjournment, sine die? Okay, so that is our decision. Thank you. Okay, so after that, we have applications which are considered unopposed and we can fast track. And that would be 4, 6, and 8. So let's start quickly with number 4, which is for 77 James. And I'm looking for Mr. Jodin. Jodouin, I think that's Jodouin. Do we have Mr. Jodouin?
Adam Jodouin is here.
All right, so Mr. Jodouin, we're not, I'm not sure I can see you.
Oh, video's on now.
There you go. So we're not going to be requesting a presentation. I don't believe the members have any questions for you. So I think the only thing I need to check off here is Ms. Linker, are you available? Ms. Linker.
Hi, Madam Chair.
Hi, just anything else we need to know, anything that came in last minute before we make a decision on this one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff continue to have no concerns with this application.
Thank you very much, Ms. Linker. So with that then, members of the panel, all those in favor? All right, so for the record, we're unanimously granting this application. So thank you very much. That's number 4. Moving on to number 6, then we're looking for 76 Holmwood, looking for Ms. Daewoo. And Ms. Linker, I think I'm going to need you back as well on this. So no presentation required, Ms. Daewoo, no questions. Ms. Linker, anything we need to know about before we go to a decision?
Thank you. Staff continue to have no concerns with this one either.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Then in that case, and I think I do need to go to and I missed this on the last application. Is there anyone who wants to speak to the application either for or against? All right. So for the record, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So now we can vote. All those in favor? All right. So it's unanimous. We are granting the application. So thank you for that. I'm going to go to number 8 is next. Looking for, this is for 318, Patricia. Mr. Kleiman, are you here or are you online?
I'm here. I'm online. Sorry.
All right, so just bear with me for a moment. Ms. Alcatev.
Yes, Madam Chair, we don't have any concerns.
All right, thank you very much. If that's the end of that, is there anyone in the audience, either here or online, who has any concerns or wants to speak in favor? Now's your chance. Not seeing anybody. With that, members of the panel, all those in favor? Okay, so for the record, the decision, the application is granted unanimously. So Perfect. Thank you very much. So with that, then we're going to go back to our regular items, which is starting with number 1. So for that is for 77 and 79 Bellwood, looking for Ms. Thompson. Okay. So we're not looking for a presentation on this one, Ms. Thompson. So I'm just going to open it up to the panel members for questions. Anybody?
Right.
No questions from the panel members on this application. All right, so in that case, Ms. Linker on this application, anything else we need to know?
No, Madam Chair, staff have no concerns with this application.
All right, thank you. Ms. Thompson, can you just confirm that this application is exactly the same as the one that was we do have some housekeeping amendments on this one as well. So, but can you just confirm for me that it's the same? All right, so just moving then to those changes that we need. All right, I believe it is for the lot areas. So I'm just going to read them out and I'll just need you to confirm for me if that's okay. So the current notice states that it's for the area on parcel 1, part 1, it's 160.63 and we're changing that to 157.8. And on part 2, the original notice reads 192.57 and we're changing that to 195.4. Do you confirm that?
Correct.
All right, so just want to make sure there isn't anything else on this. Okay. You've read the conditions on this application?
I have, yes.
Okay, any issues?
No.
All right, thank you for that. Then, any other questions now from the panel members? I just want to make sure before I go out to the public on this. I have no one listed here. So is there anyone in the audience or here in person or online that would like to speak to this application, either for or against? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, Ms. Thompson, any final words that you would like to say before we move on?
No, I'm happy if we can complete this.
All right. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to reserve on this one just to make sure that we we have all the information that we need. I think we do at this point, but we are going to reserve on it, and you'll get the written decision in due time. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so we're going to move on to 2 and 3, and I'm looking for the agent, 2 agents on this application, Ms. Clark and Mr. Hume. Do we have them online? Take it. This is for 258 Saint Denis. All right, not seeing you, Ms. Clark.
Hi there.
Oh, there you are. Maybe my computer.
there.
All right, so is Mr. Hume joining you today?
No, it's just myself.
Just yourself. Okay, so no presentation required. I'm just going to open it up to the members of the panel for any questions. Yes, Member Blatherwick, go ahead, please.
Yeah, who's the planner involved in this? Is she there? Ms. Al-Khatib. I'm just wondering if you reviewed section 11, 5, the providing direction to the Committee of Adjustment in the official plan, and subsection 9A, which deals with variances to reduce minimum required lot size, which also says it may only be considered where adequate waste storage and management, bicycle parking, and intensive soft landscaping can be provided. Was that determined to be the case? With
Yes.
This application? Okay, so it satisfies that requirement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Blatherwick. Yes, they were so keen to keep all the project complying with the zoning bylaw. So they have provided everything required by the zoning bylaw.
Well, this is in the official plan. Section
Yes.
11.5. Okay.
Yeah, yes, so they satisfied everything that you have mentioned through going back to the zoning bylaw, so everything is satisfied, yes.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other questions from the panel members? For you then, Ms. Clark, just, these are lots of records. So the actual, just want to confirm this for the record that the lot area reduction is really an existing condition.
Yes.
All right, and that's the only minor variance that you require. Okay, all right. With that then, if there's no other questions from the panel members, speakers list, just let me have a look. Yeah, no, I don't have anybody on my speakers list. So is there anyone in the audience, either in person or online, who would like to speak to this application either for or against? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So Ms. Clark, you've had a chance to look at the comments that have come in on this application.
Yes, we have.
The technical comments I'm referring to. So I don't see any conditions here to this application. So of course, yeah, so there's nothing. Okay, so if that's fine, then we are going to reserve our decision. So Ms. Alcative, just before we do that though, is there anything additionally that we need to know on this application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, like I would say the agent was so like cooperative to bring everything to be complying, and we have discussed with them our concerns at the beginning, and they were keen to keep everything without concerns.
All right, well, that's perfect then. Okay.
Thank you.
So with that then, Ms. Clark, we are reserving our decision. So we will, you will get that written decision in due time. But, we will be making the decision today before we leave. So you're quite welcome to check in with staff if you'd like to do that tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that's 2 and 3. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm thinking we probably need both. We need approvals on both applications, do we not?
We do, Madam Chair.
Yeah, okay. So Ms. Clark, I don't know if you've left already, but I think we can still do this even without the agent. So that would have been, our approval then would have been on the application number, just to make sure I've got this right. So that's D080223A00139. Let's go to a vote on the next application, D080223. Yes, that's right. We are, but we're reserving on both. No, sorry. I guess I'm still in the old mode sometimes. So yeah, I just wanted to make, because I don't think we were clear on that we actually had, that we were going to reserve on both those applications. So just for the record though, I think it's important that we capture it anyway, that we're reserving on both these applications, A00138. So I just want to finish that thought and make sure it's documented. Okay, all right. Still getting used to the new processes. That brings us then to, so we've dealt with 5, 6. I believe that gets us to number 7. So on number 7, we have, and this is 320 Cooper. And I'm looking for Ms. Greenberg. Ms. Greenberg, are you with us? Coordinators, do we have Ms. Greenberg?
Hello, hi, sorry. Hello, through the chair. Good afternoon. I'm actually going to pass it to my colleague Teresa, who is also on the line. She's going to do the presentation for us.
All right, so I don't believe we need a presentation, but if she can be on hand to answer any questions from the panel members, that would be great. So
Perfect.
With that, any members of the panel? Nope, no questions. Member Blatherwick? Yes.
So Mr. Neil, exactly how many units are we going to have in this building?
Great question. So the building exists on the site and there are 26 residential dwelling units total in this building.
And these include the 5 in the basement that are illegal.
Yes, yes. So there's the 5 illegal in the basement that contributes to the overall total of 26 in the full building.
And how are these units illegal?
I believe it's due to the lack of an emergency egress from the basement level. So the property owner intends to legalize these 5 dwelling units through the construction of an emergency egress from the basement level up to the ground level at grade, and we'll be addressing that through the site plan control approval process.
And when were those units added to the building?
I believe those units were in the building prior to the current landowner purchasing the property. And at that time, he became aware they were deemed illegal, and he made plans to legalize them through once he purchased the property.
So the addition of this emergency access for fire clears all potential code violations for these 5 units?
I believe so. Yeah.
They're occupied at the present moment?
I believe they are occupied at the present moment.
And I'm looking at your plans and it looks like you're going to be doing substantial renovations to those units.
I don't believe substantial. I think there's some interior changes to make way for that staircase that will go from the basement level up to the ground floor.
So the current owner bought a building with 5 illegal units and is now regularizing the 5 units.
Yes,
The addition of a required fire exit. Okay,
that is correct.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just on the site plan, then I'm trying to just catch up here. Is there a site plan application for this? Remind me.
It is forthcoming. So to get to the site plan approval phase, we have to have the existing site recognized through a minor variance, and then the city can process the site plan control application, which will be submitted very soon.
So just what's going to be in the site plan control application? So there was no site, there's never been a site plan approved for this lot, if I'm understanding that right?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe this building was built in like the early 20th century. So it's existed on the site for quite some time.
So I'm trying to figure out the trigger for the site plan then. When is the trigger?
The trigger, from my understanding, the city views it as the 5 dwelling units in the basement, considering that since they were illegal, this dwelling unit would recognize them as legal and they would be considered new dwelling units. And at the time, site plan control was triggered for the creation of 5 or more dwelling units on a lot. And since Bill 23, that changed some things. And the trigger remains that once completed, there'll be more than 11 dwelling units total on this site. So the need for site plan remains.
Okay, so still trying to figure this one out. So 26 units. So before the 5, obviously had 21 units. And those 21 units did not go through site plan. And so you're saying they've been there forever. This is an apartment building that dates back for decades.
Decades,
So,
yep.
Okay, so, and then the 5 units were provided, like, so for that one, I guess the city accepts that they're legal non-conforming to the existing zoning. What about the 5 units then? Like, are they recent additions? And so now it's causing a problem, or I'm trying to figure out why these aren't being seen as also legal non-conforming.
Yeah, great question. I believe those dwelling units have also existed in the building for decades as well. I'm not 100% on this, but my inkling is that since they were initially created, standards may have changed, and thus to be legal, it requires that emergency exit. And it's being captured now, and we're addressing that now to make sure all units are legalized and formally recognized in the building.
So that brings me to, I can see the need for the minor variance for the fire escape.
The minor variant, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I guess I'm still curious as to the whole site planning requirement. So I think I might ask our planner and see. Ms. Alcatab, can you provide some insight on that for me?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So a site plan control process required for any like building having more than 12 units. So it is required because it is not only reviewed by a planner, it requires more people to, like more departments to give their review and give their inputs about it. Like from the urban design perspective, from the planning perspective, from the engineering perspective, like other departments would be involved about it. So they are involved because 12 units means more people, means more services. There is a waste management, there is amenity areas, and that's why it's required. For this case, it's already an old building that's already had more than 12 units before, and the proposal is not creating any external alteration to the building itself, and it's not causing any alteration to the rear yard or the front yard. So like it's a very minor like alteration to having this stairs in the interior side yard. So nothing else is happening in the site.
I'm still curious about why we're focusing on these 5 units then. Like, to me, it seems like we have, you know, a building with 26 units that's been there for decades. The only thing we're really doing is we're trying to ensure that we're meeting code at this point. So why are we focusing on the addition of 5 units?
So because they need a permit to make the construction for the stairs, maybe that's why it's required having this minor variance. But
Okay.
like
I see the way it's written, but and that for me, it was, you know, all right, so 21 of the units are legal non-conforming and we don't really know about the 5. Maybe that's what it is, and it's to legalize the 5.
So like I didn't work much like on site plan control, but like what happens when other staff members receive the site plan application, like, or having the pre-consultation, they review it and they would say like it requires a site plan or not. Like they judge if it's required or not.
All right, thank you, Ms. Alcatab. Ms. Clark, go ahead, please. Ms. Clark, did you want to jump in there? It looked like you wanted to say something.
Ms. Clark or myself, Teresa?
Sorry, just a minute. Just a minute. So Ms. Greenberg, sorry, my apologies. Ms. Greenberg, go ahead. I think it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Sure. I was just going to reiterate that we have gone through pre-con, and the city did indicate that we needed to go through minor variance before site plan, and the minor variance is an exercise to formally recognize the existing conditions of the site. So then the site plan process can move forward on a site that is recognized for the dimensions that currently exist.
My apologies, Ms. O'Neill, I realize.
No worries, all good. Sorry for that.
The baton toss at the beginning, so thanks. All right, well, yes, go ahead, Member Bladwick.
Ms. Alcatab, regarding the building, so the city understands that this is a 26 unit apartment building with 5 units in the basement, correct?
Yes.
And it's known that this was a 26 unit apartment building with 5 units in the basement for some time.
I don't believe so. Like I'm not sure.
Because I'm wondering how they became illegal. We've heard from the planner, from Dylan, say, you know, that these units were established a long time ago. And she's intimated that they became illegal because all of a sudden there was a change in fire code requiring a fire exit. Did the city know that this was a 26 unit building with 5 units in the basement?
I don't have this information.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you, Member Bladwick, a little bit muddy. in terms of understanding, you know, normally we're pretty diligent about trying to establish legal non-conforming rights. And in this case, you know, it really opens up a lot of questions about it. So, all right. And for the site planning process, you said that, let's go back. Just want to make sure that we're undertaking that process. Hang on, I have notes. All right, so you will be submitting a site plan application, just not quite there yet, Ms.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be submitting, we will be submitting to the city a site plan for this full site.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come back to Mr. Alcative on this, but Ms. O'Connell, I see your hand is up, so go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Just wanted to step in. I haven't been individually involved in this application, but I can say just from a process perspective that applicants often have the option, they could have gone through the path of confirming legal non-conforming rights in terms of their zoning provisions, but sometimes property owners opt to bring certain units in compliance with the building code today, and that can be for insurance purposes or property standards. And so that application, for what I can speculate in this case, is the application for the building permit to bring those units up to code in the basement has triggered the other city processes, including the minor variance, and then the need for site plan, all to essentially do the same thing, to legalize what's there right now.
All right, I think, you know, and thanks for that explanation. I got the sense it really is because of the fire code violations that they have with regards to this, and that's what the trigger is, but that's fine. I mean, it makes sense to point to those 5 basement units and to legalize those at the same time, just to make sure that we have all the authorities that we need on this. So, okay. On the site plan though, so the application hasn't been put in yet for the site. Our worry, of course, is always that we're going to be dealing with things, you know, after that process is done, and that in fact, we're not seeing the full picture of what's required for the site at this particular point in time. So what, you know, any concerns or any sort of maybe forecasts for us in terms of what that process may reap? And I'm looking either for you, Ms. O'Neill, or Ms. Alcative to answer, or even you, Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my understanding is that they did already the pre-consultation with someone, one of the team members, and like he helped them to identify the minor variants. So that's why we're kind of confident that they will not be coming back with other minor variances.
All right, that's perfect. And I have your concurrence then, Ms. O'Neill?
Yes, exactly.
All right, okay. After all that, any other questions from the panel members on this? Nope. Okay. All right. So I think we'll see whether or not we have someone on our speakers list. Nope, I have no one. So is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak either for or against this application? Now's your chance. Not seeing anybody come forward. Okay. So Ms. O'Neill, any final comments?
Nope, we've read the administration's report, and we are in agreement with the report, and we acknowledge the condition that's been added to this application. So we're okay.
And I noted that there was sort of this add-on at the end regarding, I guess it's an encroachment. Is that correct?
Maintenance and agreement that would be entered into after the site plan control approval once that would be obtained.
Okay, you're aware we would be imposing that condition as with any approval, and that's I think that's a belt and suspenders kind of approach, because my sense is that'll be addressed as well, of course, during the site planning process.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So with that, then, thank you for your information today. We are going to reserve on this application, so you will get our decision in due course. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to our final application. I think we've left the best for last, which is for 612 Tweedsmuir. And I'm looking for Ms. Soar, and I see that we are going to get more speakers. So are you on my list? Just a minute. Yes. All right. So I've got Mr. Chown, who is also on this list, Mr. Jodoin, Will he be joining us today?
Don't recognize the name,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
612 Tweedsmuir. Maybe it got added somehow. You know what? Maybe that was for 77 James, so somehow it got added. Yeah, I think, yeah, he's just, sorry, he is on my list though, so I just, and then, Johnny D. Francesco is, a speaker, I take it, that we have, a member of the public. Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to be sure of that. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Tim Gray is also here from the Westboro Community Association, and he may want to provide some comments in support of the applications.
All right. Members of the panel, would you like a presentation on this one? Yes, I think we would. All right, so Ms. Soar, Mr. Chown, a presentation, please, for a brief presentation from you if possible.
For sure, Madam Chair. Excuses if we go over the 5 minutes. There's a lot to cover in this application, but I'll try and be brief. So good afternoon. My name is Simran Soar, and I'll be presenting the minor variance and consent applications for 612 Tweedsmuir. So if we could actually just skip ahead to slide 5, please. So as you know, the proposal seeks to redevelop the subject property with a semi-detached dwelling and a secondary dwelling unit within each of the semi-detached units. And each semi-detached dwelling unit will be facing different streets. And so since the previous hearing, our proposal has been amended in order to retain tree 11. So you can actually, can we just go, yeah, slide, thank you. To retain tree 11, as you can see on the plan in front of you. So the front wall of the building that was closest to that tree has moved back by 1.2 meters. So that's enough space to retain the tree. And we're also planning on planting 2 replacement trees along Duncan Avenue to replace those trees that have been lost. So next slide, please. So the severance application has also been slightly amended. So the part 1, which is shown in red, has a frontage of 15.29 meters along Duncan and a lot area of 232.7 square meters. And then part 2, which is shown in blue, will have a frontage of 15.23 meters along Tweedsmuir, 15.19 along Duncan, and a lot area of 231.3. So next slide, please. So just to speak to the rationale for severances, so with respect to section 53(1) of the Planning Act, a plan of subdivision is not required. With respect to the criteria of section 5124, the proposal has regard for various matters of provincial interest, including the orderly development of safe and healthy communities. The severance of the lot is not premature since it's in a fully developed neighborhood. The subject property is designated neighborhood in the inner urban transit and is in the evolving neighborhoods overlay. So the proposed development supports intensification that helps meet the city's intensification goals and is ground oriented and located near transit. The severance will also result in the creation of 2 regularly shaped lots that can fit the semi-detached dwelling that is proposed. There's also adequate municipal services and proximity to schools. So the proposed severance meets the criteria of section 5124. Finally, the severance aligns with a PPS by providing intensification within the urban area. So it's our opinion that the severances meet the criteria under the Planning Act for severances. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights the requested variances. So just to go through the 4 tests here. So the first test is that the general intended purpose of the official plan is maintained. So as I mentioned, it's designated neighborhood in the inner urban transit, and it's subject to the evolving neighborhoods overlay. So the proposed development meets this intent by providing additional housing units on the subject property, which contributes to achieving the city's intensification goals. The proposed development will maintain a ground-oriented built form with family-sized units that fits in well with the neighborhood. And it effectively uses the corner lot and will contribute to the streetscape. So the variances maintain the general intent and purpose of the OP. Next slide, please. And then the second test is that it meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. So the subject property is zoned R4UA, exception 2686, with a height provision of 8.5 meters. The proposed development meets the intent of the front yard and corner side yard setback provisions to ensure that a consistent streetscape is maintained. So the setbacks are consistent with the streetscape along Duncan, and they maintain the existing setback condition on the subject property. So you can see in the image, the box that's highlighted in red is the existing building that's proposed to be demolished. And you can see that the proposed building doesn't encroach into that front yard in unit 1 and corner side yard for unit 2 any more than the existing building does. The proposal has also been modified, as I mentioned, to ensure the retention of a mature tree in this yard. And there will be space to support the planting of 2 new trees in that yard. Next slide, please. So the proposed development meets the intent of the interior side yard setback provisions by providing adequate separation from neighbors and an appropriate amount of space to access the side and rear of the property for maintenance purpose or access to the rear yard. While the proposed interior side yard setback doesn't meet the requirements of the exception 2686, it's consistent with the underlying zoning provisions, which require a 1.5 meter setback. The proposed development also meets the intent of the secondary dwelling provisions related to additional front entrances, as the proposed entrance won't negatively impact the streetscape and will just provide additional connectivity and visual interest along the facade. So you can see that in the rendering that's in front of you here. Regarding the front facing attached garages, despite including them, the proposed development meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and streetscape character analysis. To ensure that new development remains consistent with the neighborhood and to ensure that garages don't dominate the front facade of the building. So as you can see in the rendering, the garage does not dominate the facade of the building, and there's design elements that are included like large windows and porches that reduce the visual impact of the garage and emphasize the rest of the home. Next slide, please. So the proposed front-facing attached garage will also enhance the streetscape by minimizing the visual impact of parked vehicles. So the image that you see here is an example of the cantilever option that's permitted as of right. So this option is not as desirable because the parked car will dominate the facade of the building rather than the front entrance. Next slide, please. So the image to the left here shows an example of real-life example of the cantilever option. So this option is more asymmetrical, and it also doesn't provide an enclosed space to store either vehicles or garbage and recycling containers, bicycles, and other such items. And as you can see, the image vehicles are always visible from the street. So on the other hand, the front-facing attached garage option, the image in front of you, is actually within this neighborhood. And as you can see, this option is more symmetrical. It also provides an enclosed space to store vehicles, to store garbage bins, bicycles, and other items. And it also reduces the visual impact of parked vehicles because vehicles are enclosed and clutter, and it emphasizes the home and front yard. So despite requiring relief from the zoning bylaw, the proposal with the front-facing attached garages meets the intent of the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the streetscape character analysis, whereas the cantilever option doesn't. Next slide, please. So this image shows a similar semi-detached dwelling that's actually been proposed directly north of the subject property at 608 Tweedsmuir. So this proposal, which includes a reduced interior side yard setbacks of 1.2 meters and front-facing attached garages, was approved by the Committee of Adjustment back in December. But it was not included in the streetscape character analysis that was conducted for the property. So if this development had been included in the analysis, front-facing attached garages would have actually been permitted on this property as of right. So the minor variances meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So the third test for minor variances is that the variance is considered desirable for the use of land. So the proposed variances are considered desirable for the use of land, as it'll allow for infill development that supports intensification within the urban area, while also having regard for the existing uses and law fabric and built form of the neighborhood. So the proposed semi-detached dwelling will fit in well with the neighborhood, which is characterized by a mix of ground-oriented dwellings, including a number of semi-detached dwellings with front-facing attached garages. So the variances are considered desirable. Fourth test for minor variances is that the variance is considered minor in nature. So the variance for the reduced front yard setback on part 1 and reduced corner side yard setback on part 2 constitute a reduction of 0.7 and 1.3 meters respectively. So this difference is relatively minor, and it'll still allow for space for tree planting. In addition, the setback aligns with the existing condition on the subject property, and so it'll have no more impact on the Duncan Avenue streetscape than what already exists. The proposed variance for the reduced interior side yard setback constitutes a reduction of 0.3 meters. So this difference is also quite minor, and it won't be noticeable from the street. Where there's also a number of other properties that have similar small interior side yard setbacks, including the proposed semi-detached dwelling directly to the north, as I mentioned. There will also be adequate space to between the proposed development and neighbors, and there'll be no impact to the streetscape from that. The impact of the additional doorway entrance for the secondary dwelling unit is also minimal. So the additional doorway will provide additional connectivity and it will help break up the facade. Next slide, please. The proposed variances to permit the front-facing attached garage is also minor. So the streetscape character analysis conducted for the subject property didn't capture that semi-detached dwelling that's proposed directly north, as I mentioned, which includes the front-facing attached garage. So had this property been included, this would have been permitted as of right. And despite the results of the streetscape character analysis, the proposed garages are actually in character with the neighborhood. So what you can see on the image in front of you is some of the surrounding lots. And so this image shows over 116 properties within a 5-minute walk of the subject property that have front-facing attached garages. So that's all the properties that are shown on blue on this image. So this demonstrates that there is actually precedent in this neighborhood for front-facing attached garages in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this image shows that there's also, in particular, several semi-detached dwelling units that have front-facing attached garages, similar to what's being proposed here. And this includes the property directly to the west, which is outlined in blue here. So the proposed semi-detached dwelling with front-facing attached garages will fit into the character of the neighborhood, as you can see from the image. The proposed garage will also have a minimal impact on the streetscape, as it'll provide an enclosed space to store vehicles, to store garbage and recycling containers, other household items, bicycles and such items. It'll also reduce clutter in the front and side yard of the building, and it'll reduce the visual impact of parked vehicles, as I mentioned. The inclusion of the front-facing attached garage will also allow for the interior yard area to be used by residents as an amenity space without any impact from parked vehicles. So the cantilever option would interfere more with the use of that interior yard area, and it would reduce the amount of soft landscaping that's provided there. So the variances are considered minor in nature. Next slide, please. So finally, in conclusion, the proposed development at 612 Tweedsmuir meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. It's also considered desirable for the use of land, and it's minor in nature. So it's our opinion that the proposed development meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act and represents good land use planning. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sewer. You alluded to in your presentation a couple of housekeeping changes
Yes.
to the notice that we need to make. So let me just read those, and then let's get them into the record, and then I'll open it up to our members for questions. So on variance number 1, we are changing the reduced front yard setback to 3.8 from the notice, which reads 3.2, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. The other changes we're making is actually to the dimensions that affect both part 1 and part 2. So on part 1, rather than 15 meters of frontage, we're looking at 15.29.
Yeah.
With an area of 232.7 square meters, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
For part 2, we're looking at a frontage, sorry, we're not changing the frontage, sorry, depth of 15.19
Yep, that's correct.
with an area of 231.3 square meters,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, so for the record, that has been changed. And with that, members of the panel, any questions on this application? Yes, member Bladrick.
Ms. Al-Khatib, if I may, reading your report regarding the the variances, and you say in here that you have no concern with minor variance D, which is the entrance to the secondary development unit, one of the secondary development units, because the new directions of Bill 23 encourage secondary dwellings, and the proposed entrance is not more prominent than the primary dwelling entrance. I refer you to section 133 of the zoning bylaw, secondary development dwelling units, and subsection 9, which says, and I'm quoting, the creation of a secondary dwelling unit must not result in any new doorway entrance added to the front wall, whether before, during, or after the creation of the secondary development unit. It does not say should not, it does not say may not, it says must not. This is a key provision of the zoning bylaw. The department is all right with this key provision of the zoning bylaw being overridden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so I have like discussed that with the other team members in the city, and well, according to my understanding, the zoning bylaw is under review, and there is a new zoning bylaw is coming. So we have to be complying with the new Bill 23. So yes, there is no concerns about having the door in the front as long as it's not prominent and it's not creating new private approach.
By putting 4 units on this site, you are in compliance with Bill 23, Ms. Al-Khatib.
So this site
I'm still not hearing why the department is not opposing this, given the fact that sub 10 of the same section 133 says subsection 9 does not prohibit on an internal lobby or vestibule with a common doorway entrance in the front wall, which means a slight redesign of this house could accommodate access for the primary unit and the secondary unit without having a front-facing access to the secondary development unit. So, and as someone, as Ms. Al-Khatib, as someone who was involved in the development of this bylaw at the community level, this was a very important point for those of us who represent neighborhoods. These are secondary units, they need a secondary entrance. Anyway. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Member Blatherwick, any other questions? Yes, Member Coakley.
This isn't so much a question as a comment, and that's part of my ongoing struggle figuring out parking. You know, we had the conversation 2 weeks ago around what's the difference between a garage and just letting somebody park in front of their front window. And the explanation was, well, if you have a garage, then at least people will perhaps park in the garage. I note from the pictures that were presented to us a few minutes ago that about half of the garages have people parking in front of their garages. So as I say, I mean, if anyone wants to help enlighten me on the challenges of parking, please do. But it's just, you know, I'm struggling with this whole where, when, and how parking could, should, would be permitted in a logical fashion.
Thank you. Okay, so back to Ms. Al-Khatib, if we could. So I'd like to focus on not the variances that we seem to be able to support, but rather on the ones that are seemingly a problem. So on A, C, E, and G, Ms. Al-Khatib, so we heard during the presentation from Ms. Soor some challenges with regards to the results of the streetscape analysis. So can you just tell me a little bit about what exercise you undertook so that we understand why in your report there's some concerns with regards to, and I'm guessing that would be, just a minute, going back to the list of minor variances, it would be C, and I believe, is it E that's related to that, or no, G? So can you just give us just some insight then about your analysis and your comments with regards to those minor variances?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So having the reduction of the front yard and the corner yard and having the front facing garage all together is cumulative, like are connected. So like the example that has been shown in the presentation previously, I'm not sure that everyone had a minor variance for reducing their front yard, but like through the street view, it's obvious that everyone having like the required front yard, and already like the proposed design is not aligned with the neighbors regarding the front facade, like the front yard setback. It's not aligned with the neighbors. It's more prominent from the two sides. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's not the dominant character for the streetscape character analysis. So like encouraging or accepting having this means having more approaches, more private approaches from two different streets. And one of them is proposed to be a future corridor. Meaning a future corridor means like more traffic there, having more like cuts in the street is not something that we encourage. So it's something that that should be decreased. So and the front yard and the corner yard, the reduction of this corner and front yard is causing like less softscaping. With the driveway is definitely less softscaping, and by having this street being like upgraded to be a corridor afterwards, like there need a good this creation of the privacy between the private property and the public realm. So the reduction of the front yard and the corner yard, in my opinion, is kind of like decreasing the opportunities of building what is the intentions of the official plan in the right way. So like it's taking it in a different way, like changing the directions of the official plan, taking it in a different way. I agree it's important, like this project is providing intensification, but like on the other side, it's intensifying, having more parking in the area over 2 streets, not only on like over 1 street. So it's creating 2 cuts in the street, less softscaping in the front yard and the corner yard, and of course, less trees. And talking about the legal non-conforming setbacks, so like we have discussed that before with the agent, and they lost the legal non-conforming setbacks because they have changed the use. So they can't refer to the older setback because the older setback was for the detached, and now they are proposing a semi-detached. And the other thing, if you see what's existing now, there is like a great tree canopy, which will not be existing the same after doing this project.
All right, and can you just address then variances D and G then, in particular regarding the conclusions of the streetscape character? Because I don't think I quite understood that if you covered it.
Oh, just there is no parking permit. The front facing garage is not permitted because it's not the dominant character.
Right, so we heard from the presentation from Ms. Sewer that one property in particular hadn't been included, and that might have made a difference in the conclusion. So can you comment on that for us, please?
So like if it's the dominant character, that it would come back with a dominant and they would not need a minor variance.
Right,
but like, yeah.
So I guess what I need just clarification. So Ms. Sewer is contending that because one property to the north has not been captured correctly in the streetscape analysis, that had it been incorporated, that we would have had a permissive streetscape character, and that this minor variance would not be required. It would have been as of right, I think was Ms. Sewer's words. So I just need you to comment on whether or not that, so just hypothetically, if we had missed the first thing, hypothetically, if we'd missed it, would it in fact change your conclusions? First question.
So no, like when we received the form for the streetscape character analysis, so one of the team do the analysis by themselves. So if there is an error coming from the agent or the applicant, it would be caught from our side. And we send back a concurrence letter that say what's the final dominant character in the area. And if they wanted to discuss that, they could have raised that before. We have open discussions with them before. But like from the city's position, I would say like even it's the last one, and we will say no front facing garage. We will stick to the dominant character.
So I think I heard from you, just Mr. Chan, just want to finish this line of questioning with her just to get confirmation on a few things. So Ms. Al-Khatib, I think I heard you say that in fact there is those streetscape analyses they're not surprises. They are provided to the applicants. They do get a chance to see them, and there's been opportunity for them to come back and to have discussions with you about the incorporations of that property. Is this the first?
Didn't have any discussion about the streetscape character at all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chown, I know you want to pipe in, so go ahead.
Madam Chair, if you had more questions for staff, maybe I should let you go there and I'll provide a response to everything I've heard. But if you're done with your questions to staff, I'm happy to weigh in.
All right, so I'm going to go to Member Coakley, and then I've got a question for Ms. Sorr, because I'd like to finish on these particular variances, because they're the ones of concern. So let's complete our discussion.
My response will be focused on those 4 variances.
All right, thank you. Member Coakley, go ahead.
I basically following up on your questions, Madam Chair, I'm wondering, is what is being said by the applicant, I kind of inferred this, that a variance has already been granted for another property, but has that particular construction been completed? In which case, if it hasn't been completed, I could fully understand why the current streetscape analysis would go one way. But if this were to be taken, if the same analysis were to be done in, say, 6 months' time, once this construction was complete, it could perhaps go another way. That might explain, if I'm understanding or inferring correctly, that might explain why there seems to be a slight difference of perspective on the streetscape analysis.
That's exactly the point.
Oh,
The streetscape character analysis is a snapshot in time. That building doesn't exist today. It's approved. They're going to construction. Once it's built, if you were to do the streetscape character analysis in 6 months' time, as you suggested, the result would be different. And that was what Ms. Sorr's evidence was in her presentation.
I just want to confirm, though, that we did explore that with Ms. Alcatib. I did ask the question. In her mind, if that was hypothetically to be included, would it change the conclusions? And I believe we heard from her that she does not believe that, in fact, it would be tipped in the opposite direction.
With respect, I'm not sure she understood the question.
All right, let's bring Ms. Alcatib back then. Let's be sure that we do understand that, because that was exactly my question. I want to make sure that, so Ms. Alcatib, let's go back to that streetscape analysis for a moment. So the way that the exercise that you've undertaken now has concluded that it is not the dominant character, and that because of that, a minor variance is required. So my question to you was, if hypothetically that property to the north was now built and in place, whether or not that would change the streetscape analysis conclusions. Can you confirm?
So yes, the streetscape character itself would change, but like now it's not there. So I can't like put something that is not there. So like my opinion will not change if it's only the dominant character, it's only for only one property, like the count of property only stands for an A because only one property is not like missing. So I will stay sticking to the dominant characters, which is no front facing garage.
All right, I want to be really clear on this. So what you're saying is you have to, and you're confirming, I guess, the explanation that Mr. Chown gave about having to essentially analyze the existing conditions the way they are now. But hypothetically, I think, if I just don't want to put words in your mouth, but if that property was developed today, that it would not change the outcome from the conclusions that it's not the dominant character. Is that correct?
If it's going to be the property number 11 in the streetscape character analysis, so at that point the dominant character would be yes for a front facing garage, but it will not be yes for 2 streets. They are proposing 2 parkings in 2 different streets with 2 no front facing garage. And another thing, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, like I had meeting with the agent twice, and twice I tried to raise the issue of the parking, and the 2 times they refused to talk about it. They shut me off and they refused to talk about it. So it's the first time for me to talk about the front facing garage with them now.
Okay, well, that's an interesting little twist. Mr. Chown, would you like to address that?
Certainly, Madam Chair. The position of the department with respect to front-facing garages is not news to us, and it's not news to the members of this panel who have sat through previous terms. The department has adamantly objected to every single front-facing garage application that's been brought before panel 1. There's nothing to be gained in having a discussion with staff about front-facing garages. Their position is clear and they're on the record. So no, we have not had any discussions with staff about the relief sought with respect to front-facing garages. On the other hand, we've had extensive back and forth with staff and their forester with respect to the corner side yard and the front yard variances. But absolutely, there has been no point in having a discussion with anybody on the city staff about front-facing garages. There's a clear line in the sand that they've drawn that they will oppose any such application, and there's nothing to be gained by having those conversations. Those discussions, as a result, are here in front of you, and we've had some success on these applications, and I will speak to that one last time before you adjourn for the afternoon.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chandler. I just want to follow up then. Understand your comments with regards to that line in the sand. On the streetscape character analysis, however, that is an opportunity for a discussion with staff about the requirement for this minor variance. Can you tell me about any discussions you had with Ms. Alcative about that?
Once again, there have been no discussions because the numbers are the numbers. We completed the SCA. We concluded that for both Tweedsmuir and Duncairn, we were category A with respect to front-facing garages. And let me be abundantly clear, that doesn't mean we can't have driveways. So all this conversation about driveways and curb cuts is irrelevant to the variances before you today. We are allowed driveways. What the streetscape character analysis determined, and our determination was the same, was that we were category A for both frontages, and therefore a front-facing garage was not permitted. That analysis will change when the semi-detached dwelling immediately to the north adds 2 more front-facing garages to the Tweedsmuir streetscape, and then we would be allowed the front-facing garage on Tweedsmuir as of right. The one on Duncairn still requires a variance.
All right, thanks for that explanation. Member Coakley, go ahead, please.
Yeah, because I'm hung up on this too. Can I just then clarify my understanding that at the moment, under the streetscape analysis, which you were saying earlier, as far as Duncairn is concerned, as of right, you could have what I would call a carport, but not a garage. And your position is that while at the moment that would be the case for Tweedsmuir, you are making the point claim submission that once this other construction is complete in whatever period of time that would take, as of that point, as of right, should be able to have a garage on the Tweedsmuir facing property. Am I kind of understanding correctly?
Absolutely, you have it correct. Thank you.
Just Ms. Alcative, you raised an interesting point, Member Coakley. So that carport then is treated different under the bylaw than a garage. So a carport would be permitted as opposed to a garage. Is that correct?
A carport is defined to be totally contained in the interior side yard. So it's different from the front-facing garage.
So the carport, so in other words, a carport in front in the way that this garage is being proposed couldn't happen anyway. It's not. So the bylaw sees carports as being completely in the side yards. I think that's what I'm understanding. So no room for carports.
That's not quite correct, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't want you to be misled. The image, if the committee coordinator could put it up, that shows what I call the mushroom house. That comes from the city staff report, is an illustration of what's permitted as of right. Slide 11.
Oh, the next one. Yeah.
There we are. So this is an illustration that the city staff included in their report to Planning Committee, illustrating the alternative to a front-facing garage. You might call it a carport, but it actually doesn't fall within the definition of a carport in the zoning bylaw. What it is a parking space located in the interior side yard, but it's not, there's a cantilever over it. So it's not wholly in the interior side yard, because the interior side yard is the space between the building and the lot line, which means it's the space between the cantilever and the lot line. So this parking space is not entirely interior side yard, it is partially within the footprint of the building. But the difference between this, which is permitted as of right on these properties today, we could do that today. The difference between this and what we're proposing is exactly what Ms. Sewer has explained. And this has been our submissions to the committee over and over again. We can do this. We can have the garage, the garbage, the recycling, the green bin, the bicycles all sitting in that space and the cars parked in that space. Or we can hide it all behind a garage door. We believe, and we've taken this position time and time again before this committee, we believe that the garage is a better solution for the streetscape, so you can hide all of those other things that otherwise are going to be visible from the street. But this is the alternative. The alternative is not no driveway. The alternative is not no curb cuts. So all of the discussion about eliminating curb cuts and eliminating driveways and eliminating parking has nothing to do with the applications before you today. All that you are dealing with today is, do we do that? Or do we have front-facing garages? And we believe quite strongly, and always have, that the better design solution is the front-facing garage, so you can hide all that stuff.
Totally agree, Mr. Chown. And I don't believe the curb cuts and the rest of it are part of this either. To me, it really boiled down to exactly what you're talking about. So it really is, how does that fit in? How do we see it in this? We believe that the streetscape analysis is supposed to give us that, but we've had enough discussion about that now to understand that it can go either way depending on this one other property, from what I can see. So Member Coakley, I see that you have your hand up. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. On your site plan dated April 2023, and I'm not sure if we can pull that up on the screen.
I would certainly appreciate, because I want to speak to it as well in a moment. So if we could pull up the site plan and just leave it up for a few moments, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so if we leave aside the Tweedsmuir Avenue one for the time being, because it may or may not change ultimately. On the Duncairn Avenue, again, if I'm understanding you correctly, what you are saying is what is currently identified as a garage there to the left of Unit 1, you have the right to park a car there with the second floor of the house overhanging that space. You do not at the moment have a right to put a garage door and a side wall around that space, and possibly not even a back wall.
You're 99% right. The only difference is, and staff would point this out as well, is that if we're not doing as a garage, that parking space moves over so it's against the property line.
Okay.
So it's partially in that interior side yard, but the rest of it is underneath the second floor of the house. That's the only difference between what you expressed and what the bylaw actually permits.
Okay. And sorry, I'm just to pursue that, because a couple of the minor variances are tied into the garages, if they are garages. If you were to do a cantilevered space there, would you require any of the minor variances on unit 1?
So once again, this is where I'm a little confused and have a difference of opinion with the city staff. The variances being sought with respect to the interior side yard setback and the front yard setback have nothing to do with the garages whatsoever.
Okay.
The garages are stepped back from the front wall of the house, which is where we measure the front yard setback or the interior side yard setback. So I don't see the connection between the two. The interior side yard setback for unit 2 is the setback from Duncairn. Sorry, the corner side yard setback. The corner side yard setback for unit 2 is the setback from Duncairn. And what we've illustrated on this plan for your benefit is the setback of unit 2 matches the setback of the existing house and actually provides an increased setback. You can see that the red area actually goes beyond the footprint of unit 2 in the bottom left-hand corner of that unit. So the corner side yard setback variance is to allow for unit 2 to be basically located within the same footprint of the existing house on the property today. That's the corner side yard variance. The front yard variance relates only to unit 1. And that's the one that we've amended today as a result of some extensive work by the architect and our arborist to try to do everything possible to save tree number 11, which is the tree that's highlighted just in front of the front door, beside the driveway for unit 1. We've squeezed that unit to protect that tree. I want to point out that squeezing that unit and shifting the severance line slightly has resulted in the loss of a bedroom in this project. The building got smaller in an effort to save that tree, and we've lost a bedroom. If we make the building smaller, we're at risk of losing more bedrooms. These are very modest 3-bedroom homes. And when I say modest, I'll just give you the number because I think it's important. They're only 1,950 square feet. They're modest 3-bedroom homes. We make them smaller, they're 2-bedroom homes. There are numerous policies in the official plan, and I can recite them for you if you want, but there's numerous policies in the official plan that speak to encouraging large family-oriented dwelling units being 3 bedrooms or more. That's the big picture. That's the big picture in the official plan in terms of intensification, is to encourage larger family units in the urban area. That's exactly what this project is proposing. And as staff insist upon or object or raise concerns to these variances, we're at risk of failing to meet those goals and objectives of the official plan. I would strongly encourage the committee to approve the variances as submitted. And in particular, if you've got any further questions for me about the front-facing garages or the corner side yard setback or the front yard setback, I'd be happy to answer those. Just quickly, in terms of the Mr. Member Blatherwick's comments about the door for the secondary dwelling unit, I appreciate that the language of the zoning bylaw is clear. That doesn't mean it's beyond the jurisdiction of this committee to vary that provision of the zoning bylaw. I can confirm what staff have told you. There should have been, quite frankly, a report to Planning Committee in June with an amendment to the zoning bylaw that would have eliminated that provision. There was an information report that went to Planning Committee 2 weeks ago that confirmed that staff will be removing that requirement in the zoning bylaw. They just haven't got there yet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chan. Just let me make one last call. Anybody for any final comments or questions from the panel? Yes, Mr. Blatherwick, go ahead.
To Mr. Chown, Mr. Chown, if you want to provide a larger family home on those properties, eliminate your secondary development units. Thank you.
Well, with respect, it's equally important to provide affordable housing units in this neighborhood, and that's exactly what the SDUs will be. They will be affordable units, 800 square feet, 2-bedroom units that will be affordable for people. So a range of people can move into this neighborhood. Thank you.
Member, go ahead, please.
On the topic of affordable housing, will those units have they applied to any of the federal programs that are creating affordable housing, or will there be minimum rent set?
Good question, but I think the answer is no. But the secondary dwelling units at that size will certainly be affordable. I don't know what the market value will be for the 3-bedroom units.
So there won't be a set rent that will be deemed affordable, meaning 25% of a household's income.
These homes aren't being built under a program that would require that, but so
they're being called affordable, but there could be differences of opinion what affordable is.
there absolutely is, and we could talk about that all afternoon because I'm not sure where anybody's clear on what affordable means. And so there's deep to affordable, there's all sorts of terms that we use in the industry, but I would have, as I say, I would fully expect the 800 square foot units to be what I would qualify as being affordable, but how do we define that? 25% of what, right? Whose income are we talking about? What household are we talking about? But they're not going to be expensive units at 800 square feet.
Thank you.
Just got to say, I have a daughter looking at rent right now, and some of the studio apartments that are 350 are going for like unbelievable prices, $1,900 a month. So I don't know how affordable, it's not affordable for her, I can tell you that. So so that all goes to show, it depends on where it is, and I guess, you know, what the type of unit looks like, but in any event. Okay, if there's no other questions from anybody, then we're going to go out to the public. We do have speakers. We have Johnny DiFrancesco. Is he with us? He's on the top of my list. Do we have him online?
Hi there.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good.
Excellent.
First time I've endeavored into anything like this. I don't know if this is the proper forum for this or not. I've reached out to bylaw several times. Our neighbor has reached out to bylaw, and my concern is the state of the property. I find it intriguing that they are reaching out to the community for support, yet they've been unable to maintain this property. There's litter all over. Property has not been maintained, grass cutting currently, without exaggeration. There are areas of 4 feet high grass. Currently, there's a tree hanging on the roof that has fallen over from a previous storm. I would suggest that perhaps that might be a bit dangerous. And I feel that the owner of the property has been just totally neglectful. I should state, I live at 619 Tweedsmuir Avenue, so I'm kitty corner of the property. I don't know if my next question is acceptable to the committee or not. Whatever happens here with the variances being asked for, I'm asking as an immediate neighbor that if it goes ahead, that it's suspended until they're able to maintain this property. It's quite derelict right now. That's my only submission. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. DiFrancesco. So some of what you've raised are property standards issues. Certainly, I think that you could approach a city to have somebody come out and have a look at some of those things and have them addressed. Obviously, if the property gets developed in the way that's being proposed here today, it's going to improve. It's going to look a lot better than the way it looks today. So so that's, I guess, the good news on that.
Okay. Probably go no further then, so I appreciate your time.
All right, so does anybody have questions for Mr. DiFrancesco? No? All right, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Gray, you're in the audience today. Come on forward. And if you can just state your name and who you're representing and your address for the record, that would be good. Thank you.
My name is Tim Gray, Gray, and I live at 190 West Village Private. And I am here today to represent the Westboro Community Association and kind of pitch. I'm the second squad of the team here. So I just we've had quite a bit of conversation with Novatech over this one, particularly around the trees. And you know, we understand that the site is complicated, and they have done, you know, what they could to accommodate or address some of our concerns. You know, they did do a lot of work just to save one tree, and it is a sizable tree. So we appreciate that, and we do understand that the you know, it affected the size of the building. And, you know, that's a concern on their side. So, you know, we really appreciate it. So that's one reason we're supporting the project. The other reason, the main reason, is that we see this kind of development in Westboro as critical. We want to see those two family units plus that secondary, those two secondary units. And we see that as critical because we want to get a diverse type of rental property. You know, we down on Scott Street, we're getting thousands of the bachelor 1-bedroom type units, and we really want to try and encourage families to live in Westboro, and this is one way to do it. So, I mean, they've done a lot for the trees. I didn't think this front-facing garage thing was going to be such an issue, but the Westboro Community Association, a few of our members, you know, actually met on site to kind of go over the application and look at it. And we had just a brief discussion about the front-facing garages because we were there on site and we could see we can literally see the buildings around us, and we didn't see that as a concern. We also knew that the property directly to the north has two front-facing garages, and that will be built. And in the beginning, when we started to talk with Novatech, I asked them, you know, what the side yard of that new building was going to be, because I was concerned about the reduction of the side yard, you know, on the new property. So the two side yards are the same setback. So, you know, that property is getting two front-facing garages. So when we met on site, you know, we considered that. We knew that that property would get two garages. Okay. The other thing that maybe Murray didn't mention is that one block to the south of this property on Tweedsmuir, there is an identical property under construction right now. It's almost built, that has a front-facing garage on Tweedsmuir, and I believe it's Dovercourt, and a front-facing garage on Dovercourt, exactly the same. So when we were meeting on site, we didn't even consider it, that was an issue. You know, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the community association see this type of development as key, you know, and sure, we would like to have lots more trees and all this other stuff, but we've got to balance that with, you know, getting two family size units and, you know, two secondary units. You know, my kids are, you know, they're in the same boat. They're looking for apartments. And is it ideal? No, but it's an apartment that, you know, and a good size apartment, you know, it's 800 square feet. That is a decent size apartment as opposed to 300 square feet. And, you know, I mean, you can talk about affordability and everything, but it puts units on the market. So I don't know what else I could say. Normally, I'm never in agreement with Murray, but on this one we are. You know, we've seen the work that they've done, and we see that it's a good. We just feel it's the kind of project we want. And maybe one other thing I should say is that if this was just two semi-detached units with no secondary units, we wouldn't support it. We would not support it. Or if it was a single family home, all the tree, you know, removal of trees and stuff, we wouldn't support that. But because it's these two family size units with the secondary dwellings, that is something
that we really kind of get behind. So I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any questions? First speaker? No? Thank you. We appreciate you coming forward with those comments. So I'm going to cast the net a little bit wider. Is there anyone in the audience, either here or online, who would like to speak to this application, either for or against? All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So Mr. Chown, I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes, and then
So, Madam Chair, I think I've said my piece with respect to the variances, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity. The last thing we'd ask the committee to consider, and the city's forester, if she's on the line, may want to comment on this. We would ask the committee to consider removing condition 10. Condition 10 reads that the owner agreed that the location of the proposed structures, including driveways, retaining walls, services, blah, 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 will be determined based on the least impact to protected trees and tree cover to the satisfaction of the development review manager. I think we're there now, and I think that the forestry comments in the memo to you that was updated today confirms that forestry is satisfied, that we have addressed their concerns as long as we live up to the TIR as it was updated and submitted to the committee, I think yesterday. So I don't want to have another round unnecessarily with the city on this, when I think that we've reached an agreement in terms of the site plan and the TIR. And as long as we abide by the site plan and the TIR, I don't believe that condition 10 is necessary. I actually think it was there previously when there was still some back and forth with us about whether or not we could protect tree 11, but now that we've modified the building plans to save tree 11, I don't think we need condition 10. So the city forester may have comment on that, but that's my only ask. Thank you, Madam Chair.
very interesting, because this is the hot off the press revised report, and I don't see this one. So I'm trying to, yeah.
Then I'm a happy camper, Madam Chair.
Well, let me just confirm that. So Ms. Young, are you with us? Or are you
I
the
think it
right
was Ms.
person?
Murray that was on the file. If she's,
I beg your pardon?
it's Ms. Murray that's on the file.
Oh, Ms. Murray, sorry. Did you want to come forward? Oh, she's, all right, sorry. Ms. Murray, where are you?
I'm online.
Ah, you're online. Okay, so thank you, because we deal with Ms. Young normally. So Ms. Murray, sorry, I know it's, I think we may have met a couple of times, but it's hard to recognize people sometimes. All right, so this report that I'm looking at that I got today doesn't seem to have that condition. Has it been moved somewhere else, or?
Sorry for all the back and forth, Madam Chair, but Ms. Alcative, do you have reference to the new plan that you just submitted this morning at what condition number that would have been?
So condition number 10, that the owner agrees that the location of the proposed structure, including the driveway.
Yeah,
Right,
that's what reads to me, but I don't believe that's the one we're looking for.
That one speaks to.
Is that that's the right one?
Yeah, because it then says will be carrying on to the bold, will be determined based on the least impact to protected trees and tree cover. Do you see that, Madam Chair? In the middle of the paragraph?
Yes. Yeah, I do see that. So,
Okay, so-
what was the reference to the tree number what that you talked about though? I thought you had an actual tree number.
No, the condition doesn't refer to the tree number, but
All right.
the whole discussion with the city has been about making efforts to save the city tree, which is tree number 11, which is the one that's in the front yard of Unit 1 beside the driveway, which initially was proposed to be removed. We've moved the building back and have taken additional steps in terms of the TIR to ensure the protection of that tree. But I think that this condition was written before we reached that consensus on what needed to be done to protect that tree. And now that we're there, and to avoid, as I say, going through this again, I'm hoping that Ms. Murray would agree to the removal of that condition.
All right, so let's hear from Ms. Murray on that, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be reluctant to remove this condition since the TIR does show retention of the tree. We will want to see the grading plan to ensure that what has to happen from an engineering perspective aligns with that TIR. So it's an added piece of protection to make sure, yeah, everything does align and this tree can be protected as planned.
All right. So, Mr. Chan, I think you've heard it. Doesn't look like an awful lot more work in this case in any event. So, okay. So we will stick with the 11 conditions as provided in this revised report. Okay, anything else before we? So I think you might have guessed we're gonna reserve on this, and you'll get the decision then in due course. So thank you for your time.
Thank you as always. Appreciate your time.
All right. With that, that brings us to the end of our agenda. So I need a motion to adjourn moved by Member Coakley, seconded by Member Kiklekian. I think I'm getting better. Thank you.